Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss events that took place during the previous 12 hours. The most important ones are coming from Kiev. During the previous night there was the biggest and the strongest massive drone attack upon Kiev. The Ukrainians are saying that as a result of that attack the Russians launched around 54 Hirans, the Shahid 136 type of drones, and the Ukrainians are saying that they managed to shut down 52 of them. Of course, it's up to you to believe or not these informations. The Russians from their side are saying completely different numbers, completely different facts. And I believe that during the upcoming report of Ministry of Defense, they are going to tell us that most of the targets were get by the Russian attack. The interesting update from Kiev is that some sources are saying that as a result of detonation, as a result of air defense work, or probably as a result of getting the target by the Hirans, there was a small earthquake on the territory of Kiev, something around 2 points of earthquake, and probably the Russians managed to get the warehouse that were located somewhere on the ground and on the surface and something like this. Furthermore, and probably the reason why the Russians launched such a heavy, strong, massive drone attack was the visit of the American United States Senator Lindsey Graham. As you can see, this is him, this is the American senator, and this is terrible video, tell the truth, and I was shocked when I saw this video. No matter the war, no matter the conflict, the casualties among civilians, but from one side, when we see how one of the representatives of the United States of America is saying that the Russians are dying, this is his strict words, the Russians are dying and this is the best investment ever of the United States of America. So it's a terrible situation, of course, and we Military Summary channel completely condemn such words of authorities. And of course, it's a war, but we shouldn't lose the face of humanity during this process, even if there is a war. Also, there were explosions in Zhytomyr, and the Russian sources published a video of the fact, and there was a lot of Telegram channels, local Telegram channels, that were saying that there was explosion, and people were saying that the explosion was as a result of work of a local air defense system, that the Ukrainians launched the missiles and something went wrong and the missiles fell down in the city, and that was the reason of the explosion in that town. Now we are moving to the ground and we are going to talk about the Kupiansk front line. There are still fierce fightings in the vicinity of Liman I. The Ministry of Defense reported that as a result of previous 12 hours clashes, fierce fightings in this area, the Russians managed to achieve some progress in the vicinity of this small building. This is railroad station Molchanova. It was information was included in the report for many days, and to tell the truth, it was very difficult to find where exactly this railroad station located. But finally, I spotted this area, discovered that this is exactly the territory the Russians were talking about. So, and the Ukrainians, as a result of that attack, lost at least 2 checkpoints and something around 15 soldiers. So probably that means that the Russians are not controlling this part of territory, so probably they have less bridgehead in this area, probably something like this in this area, and we'll see. So, but anyway, we see that the Russians continue advancing to the south, trying to push the Ukrainians from this bridgehead and from this forest line, and it's going to be very heavy clashes, very fierce fightings, because we understand that there are few ways how the Russians can attack Kupiansk, and the Ukrainians still continue preparation of defense line of Kupiansk. Of course, the first area to attack is along the roads and along the fields in direction of Kupiansk, but this area is not very good for the Russians, because you're going to cross the open fields, open air, and they will be under complete attack. And of course, the best solution for that is to move along the forest line, and in this case you are able to hide your forces, to hide your troops. And furthermore, when moving along the forest line, every single town that's located on the western side of Oskol River, I'll mark you the line of Oskol River, so this is Oskol River, is in danger, and it can be captured or attacked by the Russians. So it's like by attacking along this forest line, along the river, you're forced, the Ukrainian force, to stretch their forces, because they need to keep their forces in every single settlement on the western side of Oskol, and furthermore in the forest as well. But I don't think that the Russians are able to develop a very high speed inside of this forest, and probably they're going to take at least a month, because just for one reason, because it's already currently a summer and there is a lot of leaves, green things on the trees, and so that's why it's very difficult to cross. There are a lot of traps, a lot of explosions on the ground, on the surface of the ground, so it's very difficult. But anyway, the Russians continue advancing, but probably from the other side they're just trying to develop the bridgehead in the vicinity of Liman I, and probably they're not going to attack further. And they will use another attempt to attack, for example, from direction of Первотравневая, using the fields or trying to eat as much as possible of the gray zone between Petropavlovka and Persotravneva. So anyway, we understand that currently the Ukrainians have just two defense lines, just the final defense line that relies on Sinkovka and Petropavlovka, these two towns. And if the Russians are able to get as close as possible, then we can start saying about the beginning of the battle for Kupiansk. But for now, nothing more. More updates are coming from Bakhmut itself. Today, the Ukrainian sources published another video from their site, and this is the MiG-17 statue square. As you can see, the Ukrainians from their side are attacking this area, trying to ruin these buildings as much as possible. It's Ukrainian side, it's not the Russians. We understand that the Russians currently use this area for defense, for checkpoints. They have their eyes in this town, in this area. This is the edge part of Bakhmut, and the Russians do have possibilities to control the Ukrainians' movements in Ivanovska and the road in the vicinity of Ivanovska and so on. And the Ukrainians understand that if they want to launch any counter-offensive operation upon the flanks, they need to destroy these buildings. And currently this is exactly what they're doing. So this is the area we were watching video. This is the corner, and of course from this area the Russians can easily see positions of Sheikh Mansour Chechen Battalion, for example, of 8th Regiment of Special Purposes, or forces of 5th Assault Brigade Aidar, or any of 80th Air Assault Brigade. And of course the Ukrainians, if they want to launch counter-offensive, and probably as I see, because the Syrsky still try to force Zelensky to sign the agreements, sign to give an order, and Ukrainians of course will try to attack in this direction, trying to cut the connections between Klishchiivka and the southern part of Bakhmut. So the same tactic as the Russians were using while they were attacking and capturing Klishchiivka. Remember when the Russians got the control of Klishchiivka only after they managed to cut the supply road between Bakhmut and this town. And after that they captured this area. Of course there was a lot of things from the south, and they were moved and developed bridgehead as well, trying to cut the northern supply road. But anyway, the Ukrainians used the same tactic. Furthermore, the Russian sources are saying that Ukrainians completed the preparation and accumulation of the forces in the vicinity of between Minkovka and Zelyznyansk. If you remember, a few days ago the Ukrainians have already captured this forest line, and after that they made a small regrouping that took around a few days. The Russians were forced to step back in direction of these forest lines, and probably the Ukrainians will relaunch their offensive operation, trying to push the Russians back. And so they continue, and the reason of that is that the main thing what Ukrainians are planning and want to achieve is to get some broad front line. And to do this, they need to, the Ukrainians need to enter these fields, and let's say to build their attack fist along this line, and after that they will move further with the broad front line, tactical operational broad front line in direction of Paraskovievka. But the Russians are saying that their 2200 motorized brigade is very successful, pretty successful these days. The Russians are saying that even at some cases the Russians, this is newly redeployed brigade that replaced the Wagners on the flanks, and the first days they were forced to step back in the vicinity of this water reservoir, and currently they have got the necessary experience. They understand the area. The Ukrainians lost their time. The few weeks passed after the fall of Bakhmut, after the beginning of the flanks clashes, and currently these forces, sometimes the Russians are saying, are even launching their own counter-offensive operation that forced the Ukrainians to step back. And some sources are saying that exactly these 200 motorized brigade managed to recapture some lost positions in the past. And that's it for this short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in Ukraine. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.